Millennials, we are the blow up bag generation. '08 recession happened. I graduated college in '08. And it was just like, you'll never own a home in your life because you don't know it could be taken away. We weren't honoring buying homes because foreclosure, short sale, that's what we grew up in. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Character Library with Taylor and Travarus. We have a very special episode for you today. We're going to talk to you about the thing that everybody works for, money, but not only just money, but how to manage that money. Before we introduce our guest, let me first ask Taylor, how are you doing?
I feel like every week I be saying the same thing. This week, y'all, it's dreary outside. The world is crazy.
Yeah.
I could always be better, but I'm alive. I have lived to see another day. So for that, I will say I'm doing well.
And that's gratitude. We always have to be grateful for everything that we have because, look, the world is shifty right now, so it kind of can put a damper on your spirit. But we will not let that happen because what they want to do is stop our bag. And we're not going to let them stop our bag. We're not
Never.
going to let that happen. So, with that in mind, I want to introduce our guest, Ryan Campbell. But I won't do the honors of telling you about him. I want him to tell our audience about who he is and what he does. So, Ryan, there's the floor.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. Quick introduction. My name is Ryan Campbell, originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, former college athlete at Texas A&M University, and now I've stepped into my professional role as a financial advisor, financial planning, wealth management, whatever people want to call it, right? So many things you can delve into in that area. I think that's a good blanket statement for me.
So basically, what Ryan said is he gonna help you get your money right. Get it right, get it tight.
Not only right, but keep it because we gotta keep it. You got or put it in the right places. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Ryan is also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which happens to be a very, very important part of both of our lives. So,
Yeah.
Taylor, I would appreciate if you were a little bit more enthusiastic about the fact that you are in the presence of two noobs. I would hope that you would be
Hey,
excited, but you seem a little somber. I don't know
y'all
what
should
that's
be
about.
excited that y'all are in the presence of a woman of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. But
If
anyway,
it was two of you, I would be more
you
enthusiastic,
should.
but it's
One of me is
not.
enough, baby. One is enough. Thank you.
Mm.
Ski
We
week.
defer.
Next.
We defer.
Okay.
With that being said, Ryan, I want to ask you. You were a former college athlete. You went to school at Texas A&M. What allowed you to transition from athletics to wealth management?
The biggest thing when it came to me transitioning from, and I think this is a big thing, really just with athletes in general, right, is from transitioning from an athletic life to a professional life, right? Because a lot of athletes spend a lot of time, most athletes, really college athletes, have been playing their sport since they were children, right? Since they were kids. It was this tall. They've been doing that their whole life. Me, on the other hand, I was a little different in a sense. I didn't start really playing sports until I got to high school. I didn't play football until I was a sophomore, junior in high school, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I started. I was a little late bloomer, right? I just naturally had some good athletic ability. But I think the biggest transition for me is I always had a focus kind of on school as it was. I knew when I was going to school, I was going for athletics anyway, or I was going for academics, right? So athletics kind of came on as a sidestep, and I just knew that that wasn't going to be my end all be all. So I knew I always had to have something after the fact. And my big transition was just having a community around you, right? You go to college not necessarily for the education. Yes, you're there for the education, but college is going to teach you a lot more in the sense of the people you meet. I think the biggest thing about college is the experiences you get and the people you're around. So developing that, and when you graduate, you use those people and those connections you made to develop into your professional sense. And finance was something I was always interested in. It was something I was good at, and I had good people around me who helped, wheel me into that sense and put me in the right places. And from that, it just kind of snowballs. You have an interest in something, you pick up an interest, and you learn more and more about it. You grow at it, and it naturally builds like off of that sense. I feel like.
Okay, this is interesting. I'm thinking of it like you're an athlete. You're watching probably some of your fellow athletes on your team, your teammates go off. Maybe they in the NFL, maybe they're going places. Did you seeing them transition out from college athletics to more professional athletics open your eyes to how athletes manage their money? Because I know you specifically work with a lot of athletes in your full-time job.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I work with a lot of athletes, medical professionals, attorneys, business owners, just different people. If you're pulling in some money, then you're probably expensing a lot on taxes. So we can figure out how we can delve in that area. It's still a good idea to talk to a financial planner, but definitely, yeah, being that I did play for a Division I program in the SEC, one of the best conferences out there, if not the best conference out there. But there's a lot of guys, especially at that time of your life, when you're 20 years old, 21 years old, and you're seeing kids get these big contracts. NIL wasn't necessarily allowed back then, but they were still paying players. Like
Right,
players,
right. You got to manage illegal money too.
Hmm.
yeah, so players was really getting money like that. So seeing it and understanding just how I've seen the good sides of it, I've seen the bad sides of it. I've seen players get their stipends and blow it in 1 week at the club. I've seen also the other side of it of players who get their stipends and they're really setting it aside. They're saving, right? You got different people from different places, right? When you have a college team, they're pulling all these kids, all these different, individuals from different parts of the world, different experiences. So that also shaped a lot of what I do now was based off a lot of what my college experience was. I saw problems that were happening within the locker room and within people I was surrounded by. And I really wondered, how can I help? How can I figure this out? How can I, insert myself into the equation where I'm actually preventing these problems from happening? So I know that's a little bit of a loaded question or a long explanation, but I've seen the good sides, the bad sides of the athletics, and just watching them transition from college to professional, they're making even more money, right? But it's the same ideas and the same you had when you were in college are going to carry over. If you was bad with money in college, you probably going to have the exact same ideals as you go into your professional life, unless there's a change in the psychology you have with money.
I heard somebody say that if you can't manage 1,000, you can't manage 1,000,000, right?
Hello.
And whereas whenever you get more money, folks, I'm very guilty. You get more money, you add more expenses, and then your margins get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. Which allows me to transition to this question around. I'm a millennial. Taylor's a Gen Z. I'm not sure where you fall in that category. I'll let you answer that question. But when it comes to managing money, have you seen any differences by the way that millennials spend money and save money versus what Gen Z spends money and save money? Have you seen any differences in the way that wealth management happens between those two populations?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest difference I see, because I do work with both Gen Z and with millennials as well, and being myself, I'm Gen Z, so I kind of know a little bit about spending. I'd say the main difference, it really depends on what somebody's financial situation is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mindset people have more than anything, because I think at the end of the day, money is money.
Yeah.
It's more about the mindset that people have.
Well, let's make a scenario. Let's say a millennial makes 100K, a Gen Z makes 100K. What differences have you seen in how they manage both those bags?
Yeah. I think when it comes to millennials, the biggest difference is millennials are usually a little older. They're thinking about their long term life, might be more focused on retirement, might be wanting to set a little bit aside, 401ks, investments, things like that, right? They're really focused on that long 5 to 10 year goal down the line and setting a bit aside. The main thing I've noticed with Gen Z is real focused on growth, growth, growth. Being that in the society we live now, right? Social media, you got people buying supercars. People gonna put whatever they want to on social media. You don't know what's real. They're gonna let you see what you want to see, right? So Gen Z has this real, and it's not bad, but Gen Z has an idea of constantly wanting growth, 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 not really worried about the economic downfalls that could happen. Like for example, 2008 recession, things like that. You're young enough to still remember the volatility that the market has and how money can necessarily drop. And you are also reminded of that with COVID as well. Whereas Gen Z is a little bit more focused on growth, 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 trying to grow the money as much as possible, investing in things, which is good. It's just, you just have to have a focus and understanding that the economy it's going to fluctuate like a roller coaster. It goes up,
Right.
it goes down, right? It's going to change over time. So I think millennials tend to be a little bit safer. But at the end of the day, it really depends on where you came from and where you develop that idea.
And that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna ask. How does like someone's upbringing, as you've seen, affect the way that they spend money? Because I will say, in my own personal experience, like luckily, thank God, My dad set up like an investment account for me when I was younger because if he hadn't, child, I wouldn't have invested nothing. I wouldn't have saved any money. But him setting like that foundation has allowed me to be a little bit more cognizant of how I spend and save. Now I still got some work to do, but at least I have the foundation. So for someone who maybe didn't grow up like that, like how do you see the differences in how their spending habits are or their relationship with money is?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question, and it's a good question because I ask people the same question. So it's one of the biggest things when it comes to understanding finance. A lot of people think finance is solely logical, which is just the numbers, right? And it is logical. Like I can make a plan of we need to put X amount of dollars here if we want to get this result in however many years, right? But finance is a lot more emotional than it is logical because regardless of whatever plan I make, it may make logical sense, but emotionally it might not tie into somebody's values, right? Maybe they're not used to investing. Maybe they have psychological traumas when it comes to money, from childhood, right? I've had clients where some clients as a kid, they were taught about investments like you. So they were taught about investments, savings, things like that. And then primarily most of my clients, they weren't really taught anything as a kid, right? So that really affects how you structure out and you build a plan for somebody. It's not so much about knowing their money, it's about knowing them. If you know what their goal is, what they're trying to achieve in the next 1 to 3 years, 5 to 10 years, figure out who it is and who they want to be, what they want out of life. And that's how you structure it. But the main changes are really just going to be I've seen in people, if you were taught early, you grew up in a family that had money and they taught you about money, you kind of have that same cognizant understanding of, okay, I need to save money, set a percentage aside here. I want to invest eventually, getting really on a good slate. Whereas a lot of people who didn't grow up with money or even just the idea of money or taught about that, you don't, it's like playing a college football game without a coach. You can get real hurt. You can get career ending injuries, right? You don't have a playbook, you don't have a coach, you're just out there running, right? Whereas when you were given the playbook as a kid, it's a lot easier for you. Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be successful, but you do have a little bit of a blueprint. So I think that's the biggest change is just being able to have a clear definition of what it is you want out of life, right? And those things can drift from childhood to, to your adulthood and you figuring out, if your parents were bad at spending money or they were never saving, you develop the same habit. It trickles down. Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
I am an apple that's real close to the tree. My mom not saving, my dad not saving. So, like for instance, I'll give you a bit of a backstory. I never imagined that I would be able to own a house like I do, right? Because I wasn't necessarily set up. I think that Taylor talks about her dad a lot. And I love the fact that he set you up in the position to do that. My mom told me to go to college and don't mess your credit up. Those were the two. That was it. But no examples of what to do. But going back to the question I asked, millennials, we are the blow a bag generation. '08 recession happened. I graduated college in '08. So I talked about this on a previous episode. '07, my line brother graduated and he got a job with the company car, decent salary for that time, and was off to the races. I graduated in '08 and it was just like, you'll never own a home in your life. like the world, everything shifted. So we were living in a very temporary state of like, whatever you get, and because you don't know, it could be taken away. We weren't honoring buying homes because foreclosure, short sale, that's what we grew up in. So what I want to ask you is, have you seen some of that trauma from millennials come up in these meetings, in these sessions with your clients, and how do you talk them away from the trauma to get them to funnel their perspective into proper money management?
Yeah, most definitely. I have seen the changes in people. I think specifically with millennials, like I said, y'all like going through the recession 2008, y'all are young enough to remember it. Now it did change shortly thereafter, but like I said, you remember the volatility of the economy. So millennials tend to be a lot more conservative, but that can also limit you, right?
Sure, right,
Learn
right.
to be risky. You don't gotta throw all your money in some meme coins and stuff like that. But like that's not what you want to do. But just to understand risk, right? Risk is better to be risky in your earlier years in life. And you still
Right.
in the early years, Last thing we want to do is get to age 50, 60, and now we like, okay, I think this one's a hitter. Let's throw 50,000 for it. No,
No.
he cooking up parlays at age 55.
Ooh, sweet.
Not the parlays.
Not the parlays.
Not the parlays. I need Devin Booker to get 30 tonight or it's going down. I
If
need
y'all are listening to this and you are a millennial and you still doing parlays, let's lock in.
a
Well,
little go easy. We're not people
You still be doing
gamble.
parlays, Travarus?
No, I don't. My money, you see you see what I got going on. Like I know we ain't got that going on. But what I was gonna say about that is the thing that happens with the mindset as you get older, you get more conservative, right? But with that also being said, the difference with millennials is that we didn't trust Wall Street because Wall Street crashed. Lehman Brothers, which was a major firm, crashed right before our very eyes. The difference is you all are being taught to invest
yeah,
in a smart way, right? We had like E-Trade, but we didn't have a Earn Your Leisure. We didn't have a Wall Street Trapper. We didn't have these relatable figures to understand of how the rich are getting wealthy, but also how we could do the same thing. So I think we had a very strong distrust for the system, and y'all are learning how to actively use the system and replicate systems that the rich and wealthy have been doing for generations. And I
Like
love
that
that.
GameStop, that
Yeah,
when
oh my God! So y'all
GameStop, that
y'all
stuff.
have y'all are getting no pun intended the game from those who have done it. You know.
most definitely. Most definitely. I think that's a big thing as well. Being, like I said, when it comes to the same as being raised from your childhood, seeing things growing up, having that access to social media and seeing all these things, it does make people want to strive a little bit more, right? Seeing these things done the right way. There's so many resources out for people to become really rich, wealthy, and really just get to that next level. There's an unlimited amount of resources out there. You can learn anything right nowadays. YouTube, Google, anything. Chat GPT will teach you.
That Chat GPT can teach you. And I want to ask, we've gotten into a little bit of the weeds of this, but we never really explained like what wealth management is. Because for some people listening, as you mentioned, they may not even know what we're talking about. They're like stocks, bonds, if it, like what we throwing around a lot of words. So Ryan,
I don't have wealth. What
you
can
you do have everybody got a little wealth.
Yeah.
But I mean, wealth can be defined in different terms. But
I
we
wasn't
can
talking about me. I was this
get
was
into
a
that. Oh, okay. You were
Yeah. A little
for the
quotation.
listener. Well, if someone is listening and they're like, what are these people talking about? Can you explain what wealth management is in your own terms, like breaking it down to someone?
Yes. I think the best way to, I use a lot of analogies. So the best way to explain it, kind of similar to what I said earlier about having a coach. So wealth management, people hear the word wealth management and they think, oh, you got to have $1 million saved in the bank. You got to have $100,000, right? Wealth management is simply just planning out your expenses, planning out, managing your money, knowing where it's going, knowing what it's doing, right? With, let's say, if you have $1,000, knowing what portion goes in different places, right? That's all it is, helping somebody get to where they need to. Just like having a college coach. I don't know how well versed the listeners are in football and sports like that, but imagine having, Dabo Sweeney, Nick Saban, people like that who are guiding you. They've
the
seen
elite.
yeah, they've seen so many people do the exact same thing. They've been with all these teams, all these different players, so they know the rights and the wrongs. So wealth management is essentially just having somebody who has seen so many different situations, so many different experiences with different people. They know the long-term goal of the team and what y'all are trying to achieve, which is to win those championships, whatever it may be for that person's life, right? You know what they're trying to achieve, so it allows you to lay a brick road or a roadmap for them to get there, to analyze when they need to work on their routes, when they need to work on their money management, right? What they need to do about that process to get to that long-term goal. But wealth management is essentially just managing somebody's money, giving them a strict plan to make sure they are set up to get to the goal they have in that future.
That was a
I
great way of
love it
explaining it.
was. I love this college football analogy because I want to tie in something that you mentioned earlier with what you just said. So using that college football analogy, a Dabo Sweeney, a Nick Saban, they have been coaching for years, some of the greats, especially in y'all's conference. They have taught some of the most elite athletes how to become even better. And it's not from a ability, which would be your ability to earn. It is about your discipline. So going a little deeper, if you're Nick Saban, like you're the Nick Saban of wealth management, and you see your athletes having like 4 fire games, epic games, right? You have to teach them these are great games, but you can't let them get too far ahead of themselves and flame out, right? And I think the same thing happens with money. You may have a few good years, but how do you help somebody understand, especially with you mentioned in that Gen Z are like supercars. Y'all see, y'all grew up with the internet, with Instagram, everything right in front of you. How do you make sure that someone stays disciplined if they're having a few good years? How do you convince them, like, yo, in 4 years you might not make 400,000 that year. You might make 200. Now, how do you adjust? How do you help uh, talk to them about that stuff?
I think the main thing when it comes to helping people structure after, because when you're the highs are high and the lows are low, right? So when people are at a high, you have to just really plan and make sure that you preserve what it is you're pulling in, right? I'm not one to make somebody pinch pennies their entire life just so they can live good when they're 50 or 60. I think life is made to be lived to the fullest throughout the time. But we want to make sure we calculate everything it is that we're doing, right? So, because we know the good doesn't last forever. It'll be rainy days, it'll be sunshine, right? So, I think the main thing when it comes to people is, like I said, wealth management is structuring out a certain portion of different funds to ensure that you're bulletproof in a sense, right? My job is to help people make money and save money, but it's also to make you bulletproof so that in any instance, no matter what goes on, what happens, it doesn't thwart our plan or it doesn't put a stop in our plan. So developing things like an emergency fund set aside, and then developing a little bit in your investment accounts, having money set in your insurances, having money set in Roth IRAs, stuff like that. As long as we just make sure we set aside a portion in certain areas and we plan the right way, that's one of the ways you can make sure that the highs don't get too high. But you're always looking out a year, 2 years, 3 years, looking at the long term. And as long as I stay focused on the long term goal with the client, they can enjoy as much as they want to with other things. As long as we make sure we set aside what we need to, then we'll be smooth drifting from there.
Okay, so you're speaking on diversification. So diversifying your assets, so putting them in multiple different places. Now, I do this. However, one thing I'll speak from my own experience, it's becoming harder for me to like truly lock in and diversify all of my assets because the cost of living is just getting too high. I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna put this in my Roth. I'm gonna put this in my investments. I'm gonna put this in a high yield savings account. Then I'd be looking, I'm like, damn, where the where the rest of the money at? So, what do you recommend there? Like, how can we still, save and be financially smart when the cost of living just keeps on going up and up and up?
True. I think the biggest thing when it comes to that is usually this is what I tell clients as well. So when clients are struggling with lifestyle and how they're living, there's only two things we can do.
Oh, Lord.
Either we can make more money. This is one of the two.
It's
But
gonna always have to be make more money for me because I ain't
yeah,
cutting nothing. I'm sorry.
that's it.
I gotta go to the DR. I can't just not go.
Yeah, you gotta live your life, but
Can't just not go.
100%, you gotta enjoy life. But also at the same time, it's making sure you're not doing too much. Like they're not getting involved in too much ahead of time, understanding what's the most important factor. For example, if you have some money, you have a chunk of money, and let's say you're having to split it between, let's say your living expenses have been raised, which of course living expenses today are crazy, right?
Absurd.
Cost of living is ridiculous. Groceries, everything.
Child, you
Days at
can't even get an avocado for cheap no more. They be wanting $3 for an avocado. I'm like, it's an
I
avocado.
can't even go to Whole Foods anymore.
I don't even step foot in there.
Can't even go there. That's out the question. But essentially, understanding what's the most important. So if you're taking chunks out, chunks are going to your 401k, they're going to your Roth IRA, they're going to, if you're younger, you have time, right? You got 30, 40 years. You can't touch your Roth IRA until you're 59 and a half. So maybe we can put a little pause on things or lower contributions in areas until we do get a little more influx of cash coming in. But just figuring out, and that's exactly what having an advisor would help you do, is them figuring out, okay, where can we take a little slack out of the rope? Put a little bit more slack in the rope as well. Where can we ease back a little bit to give you a little bit more freedom, right? Maybe we don't need to be chunking an extra 500 towards the Roth every single month. I mean, we have plenty of time to fund it, right? And just different areas in that sense. But that's what a good advisor should do for you. is they should be able to help you plan out and figure out where can we minimize expenses here, where can we give you a little bit of leeway, things in that area is what I'd say.
If I called my financial advisor today, he would probably cuss me out because the way I'd be like, okay, I put this money to the side for my savings. So now I'm about to go, spend a bag on this dinner for myself. I got to chill out. So thank you for
Just like the coach analogy, if you are slacking in practice and you know you got to go see your head coach, you going to go there with your tail tucked between your legs, like, I know.
Yeah.
when I see him again, he probably gonna look at me crazy. I ain't gonna lie, but let's fingers crossed. Let me lock in before tax season.
But the good thing, and speaking of time, let's get there because like I said, we do have a good mix of listeners in their 20s and 30s, and let's say that they are none the wiser on how to manage money. They might be getting their first real check. Like for instance, for me, my first few years professionally, I didn't need to manage anything. Whatever was coming in was going out.
Uh,
But for those of us who are trying and striving to do better with money and gain more, what are the real tangible first steps around what you should be considering when you get your check?
The best way to start out when you start in your life and you're making money for the first time, maybe you just graduated college, or maybe you just got your first big boy job or big boy job, right? Where you're actually pulling in excess amount of cash. I think everybody needs to start at first thing you should do is develop an emergency fund. That's the very first thing you do. When it comes to the same thing I do when it comes to building clients, when you now there it gets different when you're analyzing debts and things like that and loans and things that people have. But the main source of building a financial plan, think of it like a pyramid, right? You got to start at the bottom to build a pyramid. So they say, right? So from the bottom, you got to build it up like the foundation of a house. The very basic things are what's at the bottom. So things like an emergency fund, your debt management, insurance planning, stuff that's on the basic floor. As you establish those things, you climb up, then we start building things like, okay, now we can start investments. Now we can start diversifying. But really the first step is just helping somebody get a solid emergency fund. And I'd say that's anywhere from 3 to 6 months, right, of your living expenses. Whatever it takes you.
I gotta lock in.
Look, that's all you gotta have. And set that aside in
That's all.
a high
That's all.
account.
I
That's
was gonna know how much money I spend a month. Ooh, all right.
easier said than done, right? But you get 3 to 6 months of your living. I used to say 3 months. Some people like who are a little, let's say millennials, for example, if they want to be a little bit more conservative, they might want that 6 months because they know what it looks like. But I usually say anywhere from 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. Set that aside in a high yield savings account. Once you get that, that's a little bit of your safety net. Now you know, okay, after that fact, we don't need to keep putting the money into that savings account. Now we can start putting it somewhere else, whether it's towards investments, whether it's towards a business venture that you're trying to start, right? You have a cushion to fall back on. But that emergency fund is essentially there just so that you know any way, shape, or form, any instance, worst case scenario, we lose a job, something like that. I've got 3 months of my rent saved up, 3 months of my car insurance, 3 months of my phone bill, all that stuff. And you can find a job hopefully within those 3 months, right? If you actively searching every day for 3 months, hopefully you can find a position. And you can be a little bit more choosy about it. You don't have to take the first thing. You don't got to
I
take.
got I got two more questions from this specific thing. One is about gender. I'll give you an example, then I'll ask the question. I have homegirls who are well to do, right? Single women, bought their own homes. And when I talk to them, I'm like, where are you getting this money from, bro? So have you noticed that there is a difference between the way that men save and spend money versus the way that women save and spend money?
There is. Truth be told, there is a difference. Now, I will say that a majority of my clients tend to be female. And I think sometimes it's because men don't like to take direction from people.
Or accountability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't want to be told what to do. But also, we live in a society where it's about girl bosses. They got a lot of girl bosses out
I know that's right.
Right.
there making that bread, making that money. But the biggest thing is it's a lot of money, whether it's males or females. There's a lot of money being made out here. But I do know, I think females have a very clear path. Usually, when I talk to them, there's a plan. I ask people, what are your plans for the next 1 to 3 years? What are the things you know you want to achieve in these for the next 1 to 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
I usually that's what I hear. That's what I hear a lot of guys say. They just say, I just want to make some money, take care of my girl, and be rich, live life, do what I got to do, be a provider, right?
Type of plan, child.
It's not
How
too
you gonna take care of the girl without no plan?
depends, right? And women will come in and they have a specific plan of, oh, I want to be married by this day. I want to have a house by this time. Now, I don't know if they're gonna get married. That depends, but there's a lot of expectations out there. But women are a lot of time just more analytical and have a specific goal set. Doesn't mean to say though, there are a lot of men I talk to that they
For
have
sure.
exact goals of what they want to do, and they got the head on straight. They doing exactly what they need to do every
You where they you call send them to me.
But my home girls are always more well prepared than my homeboys. And this goes into the second question. Then I'll let Taylor ask some. You mentioned the foundation is first, investing is second. How many times have you seen somebody say, I'm gonna invest, but you don't have no savings? Like how many times have you seen the inverse of like, nah, I could just put something in put something over here, this XLR. And it's just like, bro, do you have a foundation? Have you seen that example? And what do you tell people when that happens?
Yeah, I've seen that example many, many times. I've seen that with family members. I've seen that with close friends. And I'm not telling you shouldn't bet on yourself or you shouldn't, want to invest in these certain things. But man, there's got to be a floor we start from. We ain't got a ground to lay on, right? You need to establish a safety net for yourself because the stock market is not going to always be up. It's going to drop. It's going to fluctuate, right? So when the stock market is down, I mean, number one rule of investing is you don't pull your money out the market when it's down. You only pull it out.
Hello, that it.
Yeah. Don't pull it out when it's down, right? You have to pull your money out of the market when it's up. Otherwise, you're going to take a loss on investment. So even if you do invest all that money and you make enough, right, usually you're going to leave that money sitting for a while unless you're somebody who's day trading and stuff like that. But
Gamblers.
yeah,
Talk about a parlay. That day trading is an addiction.
it's essentially just Wall Street gambling. That's all they're doing. Really having that safety net is what allows you to be more comfortable when it comes to investing. Knowing you have money set to the side allows you to be more confident and comfortable when you're making investments. If you don't even have anything set up on the side, you might even be scared to make an investment. It could have been a right investment, but you were too scared to make it because you're like, man, I really can't lose this. I don't have nothing set on the side. So trust the markets. Money ain't going nowhere, right? Money is always going to be around. They always going to find a way to charge us something. So market's not going nowhere. Give yourself time, set up a good solid foundation, and then you got time to invest in the market. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. It's going to be here till the end of time, however long we here, right? So I'd say that's the biggest thing. But foundation.
This is interesting because I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Because my investments are already set up a little bit, I do be investing a little bit more than I be saving in that account. So you were low key talking about me. I was like, I feel like I'm a hit dog that's about to holler. My stuff is diversified, but I have learned in this session that I do need to lock into my high yield because I'd be like, high yield over here. I'm like, I'm gonna give you a little bit of money, girl, and then I go do everything else in the investments in the Roth. But I need to lock in to Shawty over here.
But
So
I think it's beautiful that even at your age you have that perspective. And I feel like the old head here saying this, but like when
I mean,
I'm
you right.
talking about when I was, I don't want to say your age, you can say, but when I was your age, we at the club, bro.
And you can still go
We
to the
didn't
club.
have
I
no
still be at the
bread.
club
But
occasionally.
we didn't have no money. Saving wasn't even like we was just outside. I told Taylor one episode the most the most fun I've had was when I was broke. We was traveling, having a good old time. We just piecing it together because you don't have no conscience. You're just having a good time. But I'm just saying, it's beautiful to see that even at your age, you're thinking about Roth, you're thinking about investment, you're thinking about high yield savings account, and I think that's a testament to your generation really learning and applying the information that you get.
Yeah.
And to your point, Ryan, I think the reason that a lot of us are like this is that it's just so easy to access these things. Like I was just talking to someone yesterday, and you literally can go on the Cash app and invest. You can buy
Mm.
stocks or you can invest in Bitcoin, which
Yeah.
I want to hear your opinion on that, Ryan. Like this Bitcoin thing. I'm like, at first when I was younger, I'm like, I'm not gonna buy no Bitcoin. But now like people making hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars because they put like 200, $300 in Bitcoin. So like, what is that all about?
Yeah, it's actually that's a funny story because I vividly remember I was in high school and I got two older brothers, so I was in maybe high school. I was probably a freshman. I remember my brother telling my mom to like invest in Bitcoin. Well, he like probably like 18, 19 at the time. He's trying to get her to chuck a bunch of money towards Bitcoin. And that wasn't a big thing back then. Like that was really a thing that was like, oh, that's crazy. I'm not putting my money towards some digital currency, right? But I just vividly remember him trying to get her to invest. He's like, Mom, just like $1,000 put in there. That's crazy to ask a black parent to give you.
Okay, bro.
What?
Like, hell no.
What are you
That's
talking about? You don't go to your room.
Had he did that though, so much money would have been made. But really, back to the Bitcoin thing. Bitcoin, I think cryptocurrency is one is very volatile, right? So it's very volatile, but it is something that's good and it's going to grow in the society as society grows. Tech is only growing, AI is growing, and recently with the presidential changes and that, whether you like them or not, Elon and Trump are very big towards tech growth. So it's something that's going to continuously grow in the future. So
Our president has a meme coin.
yeah, he has a meme coin.
What are we talking about, bro?
Crazy. That's crazy. But you do know these things are going to grow in the future. So ideally, I say it's good to chuck a small amount of like less than 10% of your portfolio should be in Bitcoin, right? It's small percentage. You don't need to be getting paid. Let's say you get paid $5,000. You're like, okay, I'm going to put 3,000 in my Bitcoin account. No, okay. All right, chill out. Just a small amount, right? It could be something like less than 10% of your monthly income or your just annual portfolio should have maybe less than 10% because it has the opportunity for growth in the future, right? Don't get caught up. I've seen people get caught up in where they get these big checks and they're throwing all of their money to these cryptocurrencies, things like this, imagining that it's going to get this big break soon. And that's just not how investing works. That's 1% of the time, 2% of the time. But most of the time, you got to wait things out for periods, the course of 5 years, the course of 10 years, things like that. And you will get positive results after those amount of time, but don't just expect some get rich quick scheme just from investing, right?
Yeah.
Always
It took Bitcoin, what, like 10 years to get to this point? Because I mean, yeah, talking about high school, we've been out of high school for Lord. Anyway, it's taken a while for it to get to that point. And I'm like, if only I had invested a little bit back then.
But even 5 years ago, returns in Bitcoin are
And Bitcoin took big hits, and every time it recovers, it's big news. But like people have projected like, all right, Bitcoin going to hit 100,000. Like they said that a couple years ago, and then when it hits 30, people are like, it's never going to happen. But that's a lot. That's $30,000 for one coin. But maybe back when you were a freshman in high school, a coin probably cost $2,000.
Yeah,
or something like that. So it's a lot of money to be made.
it is. And that brings me to another point as well. I think a big thing in people's life, because I'm talking here about being conservative, being safe, things like that. But I think one of the biggest mistakes people make early on in their lives, or just in general, whether it's Gen Z, young people, young professionals, I think is not being risky enough, right? You have to understand how much time you have on your side, right? It's better to be riskier or be more targeted towards risk young in your life than it is once you get towards 50, 60, right? You want to be able to take those risks, right? Go get that job that you always wanted to do before. Go spend time investing in yourself, investing in the business or whatever it is that you want to do. Take those risks early on in life because the sooner you understand yourself and what you're trying to do, it makes it a lot easier to figure out what works, what doesn't. You got time to do that. You got time to recover. You got years to recover and do that. So make sure people are actually taking the time to take the risk and do what they want to do. Calculated risk, though. Calculated risk.
I'm about to, y'all make me want to go take a risk or something. Should I go skydiving or some shit? Maybe
Just buy. Just go get your hair done again. That's
that is not a risk, Travarus. That is a monthly occurrence.
I told you, you're blonde, you get spicy. So maybe try another color if you're feeling froggy. But don't skydive. We got a podcast to build.
Okay,
but
you want me to come back in one piece, valid.
With that said, Ryan, I want to ask you a Ryan question. How does Ryan celebrate himself monetarily? Are there things that you allow yourself to do? Is it a certain steak dinner you want to go to? It's a certain car that you aspire to have. How do you celebrate yourself with all the knowledge that you have around money management?
That's good. That's good.
Ryan low-key be outside, y'all, but
I don't. 2025 is a new year.
Talk about it.
I had to celebrate and reap the benefits of the things, all the hard work I put in throughout 2024. I had to make sure I earned it, right? But I did it within the budget. But yeah, I think for me, the biggest things is, man, because people see me as a financial advisor, and they're like, okay, Ryan probably is super frugal. He don't spend money on anything. He knows all about money, so he's not having no fun in life. Trust me, I am having fun. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm buying the things I want to, but well within reason. But I think gifts to me, I like to schedule things. As long as I'm staying on track and I'm doing what I do, I'm like, okay, I track every month how much I've made, how much I've saved, how much I've done in these areas. As long as I'm staying on track and I'm checking off the tick marks, like I do in this book here, I got like a little planner of all my expenses and everything I write up in here. But as long as I'm on track, I allow myself those good things. Things I like. I'm big into fashion, right? If anybody knows me, I'm big into fashion, clothes, stuff like that.
This man got a new outfit every other. Travaris, if you think I be buying clothes or you be buying clothes, no, Ryan be buying clothes.
No, as you should. It was a point I couldn't step out with. I couldn't. I need to pop some tags. This was a lifestyle. So trust me, I get it. It's not the best financial advice, people, but you feel good.
But yeah,
How
so
these Kappas be? They be anyway.
gotta pop out a new suit. I gotta have a new suit. Come on. But it helped me make. It helped me. I gotta look like money if I'm gonna help people make the money.
And I'm gonna take one pause, Ryan, real quick. Taylor and I went to Afrotech,
We did.
right?
Ryan was
Separately,
there, actually.
okay. Separately and together, we both got compliments on our clothes that led to conversations. Some conversations even though it ended up being interviews on the podcast. So I don't want to hear I don't want to hear you say nothing about clothes and how that can or cannot help you in your business. It is an investment in yourself and it helps you to get a great connection. And here we are now. So,
Gotta
you know what
look
I mean?
smart. Yeah.
Got to.
But that's definitely probably my main thing when it comes to me is that's how I reward myself. Whether it's that I just like to make sure that I'm on track. Is I mark off the days that I get everything done. The days that I've woken up early, I've gotten to the gym. I marked out all the tasks. Like it's a checklist. I write just everything I need to do, and I cross it off as I go throughout the day. The days I cross everything off, then it's an X on the calendar. If I get a certain amount of X's on the calendar, okay, I deserve a reward.
Well, this is good. Can you would you feel comfortable sharing some of the things on that checklist? Because I think this is a great point in the conversation around not only are you rewarding yourself frivolously, but like, no. I gotta get this stuff done. And you don't even get an X on your calendar until these things is done. This is fire. Let me talk more about your list and how you develop this mindset.
I got you 100%. So today's a Friday. I don't have too much on my list today, but really mainly it's the list will really be a little bit more of clerical tasks that I have when it comes to the business. So, but I also have the daily things that I know in my head I have to do, and if I didn't do that, then I know it's not on there. But the list, for example, I've got people's names on here. I'll just say their initial, but I need to schedule them, call about investments. Mr. Maxwell, schedule him. Masongo, schedule them. Turn in an OMHQ for somebody. I've just got different clerical tasks on here that I've got to get done throughout the day. And these are just things that are going to lead to my success in the business.
Right.
To make sure I get those done every single day. The thoughts that I already have in my mind of what I need to get done, I know I need to wake up every single morning at 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. I know I need to get to the gym at a certain amount of time. That's the hardest part of the day. If I can get it, because I'm not a morning person. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not a morning person at all. But I get up, I go to the gym. I'm like, okay, that's the hard part. Everything else in the day starts to flow easier.
Yep.
Yeah, you get that the hardest part of your day done first. Everything else flows a lot easier. But I'll have things on the list, for example, like that of what I know I need to get done, and what I don't get done that day. I just look at the list again the next day, and then we slowly mark those off. But I think of a lot of it for me personally, it'll be just clerical tasks I need to get done in the business. So if other people are looking to do the same thing, one, you got to figure out what is your long-term goal or what are the things you get done that day. But you should know what you need to do tomorrow before you go to sleep that night. If you have a clear picture of what you want to do the next day, it makes it so much more easier than you waking up and being like, okay, what I got to do today? What I got to do?
Man, I need to have something to look forward to each day. I need to. I have to. But as we get closer to the end of the episode, I wanted Taylor to go ahead and transition us into the fun aspects of this conversation. You've been giving us some gems, some jewels, but let's have a little fun.
So yes, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions to you. And y'all know I love. I think I'm the more fun person on the podcast. Travar is fun, but he a dad and stuff now. It ain't the same as in the past. So I was like, he a dad, a girl dad at that.
I'm the girl dad. I love my daughter. I'll show you my grandma after this. She's everything.
His daughter is also named Taylor, so
She
that's
is.
fire. But yes, let's get into some of the fun questions. So number one, if money weren't an obstacle, what would you be doing right now?
If money weren't an obstacle, what would I be doing? Money ain't an obstacle technically, but if money,
Wait a minute, he said money ain't a.
We said talk your shit, and here we
Just
go.
call me
Talk
broke.
about it.
Damn.
okay, so if money really were not like I really didn't have to worry about no expenses. Oh man, I'm traveling like crazy. I'm at New York Fashion Week. I'm in Paris. I'm somewhere tropical. I'm on the beach, but I don't want to just be there by myself. I want to be surrounded by my people, my friends, if I'm with my LBs, if I'm with my brothers. Like, also, if money weren't an obstacle, I would be sending my parents on vacations all the time. Like, they would be somewhere, anywhere. I just want them to go because they spent so much of their time, all their life. They have worked to get me up to the point and position that I'm at. The biggest reward I could be to just allow them to live and do whatever they want to. I would be sending them on trips. That's my biggest thing. If money wasn't an obstacle, I'm sending them on trips. They having fun. They traveling, going wherever. Because I got plenty of time to live, right? I got plenty of time.
Taylor, behold, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Not only does he want to look out for his friends, but his family as well. He wants to look out for his family as well.
I love that for y'all. Anyway, okay, let's keep going with the fun question. So you would send your family on a trip. You would send yourself on a trip, which I love, paying homage to your family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you could go back to your younger days, we still young, like we
Yeah.
still very young. Your super younger days, what is one financial piece of advice you would give yourself?
When
Invest in Bitcoin.
exactly. That's what I threw every check I had towards a Bitcoin.
It's a Bitcoin.
Back then, right? Nowadays, like, yeah, that's probably what I told. If I went back in time and I told myself, I would have told myself to invest. But you can't, you don't know those curves on the time.
Yeah, when you're like 10, nobody.
They be asking for work experience. You need to have 5 years of work experience by the time you graduate, something like that. There was no way I could have had that. So back then, I wasn't able to do that. But
Right.
I think telling my earlier self, let's think of, in a sense, I'm gonna change the question a little bit. So if it was like, let's say mistake wise, if I told my younger self mistakes to avoid, that wasn't necessarily a mistake because it was necessary, but it's credit card debt. I think credit card debt, and that's a big thing for people. Like,
Yeah.
especially, I was in college. I wasn't getting paid. So background. I don't know if you knew Travarus, but originally I ran track when I came to A&M, but I walked on. So I walked on the track.
Okay.
And then I didn't want to run track anymore, so I switched and I walked on football instead. So I walked on both of those sports. I maintained them for a while. But so I wasn't getting paid no money. I was out there doing it for the hustle.
Grinding, right.
Grinding. I was for real deal grinding. But when you're playing football in college, you can't get a job. You can't. When you got fall camp, you're there from 7 a.m. in the morning, or like 5 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning, till 10 p.m. at night. You're doing that. You're there all day. Like, you can't get a job or do anything. So I ain't have no money. I wasn't getting no stipend. I wasn't doing none of that. So I took out Discover cards, credit cards. I was over there swiping, doing what I had to do. Like, I don't
Discover is always there for college students to blow a bag. They always around. Like, yo, bro, go away.
They got that Discover card specifically for the students. That's the one I
Yeah.
still got. I still got that card too.
They know what they doing. They know.
They do.
But yeah, I think falling into credit card debt in college was one of those things. But it's just trying to, like, keeping up with the Johnsons, but also just living. Like, I live. I didn't want to ask my parents for money. Now, granted, I would still from time to time, but, oh, mama, can you send me a little bit, this and that? But I think just back then, having so much, I was living a life at that time. I had football, I had school, I had all my organizations, I was doing new stuff all the time. So, I don't got time to get a job, right? But that was easy. Yeah,
lifestyle.
It was a lifestyle. So it was really just, that's one of the early things you fell into. But I recovered from that very, very soon on, especially after you start working a actual job that's really paying you some money, right? That's something I would tell people to avoid: credit card debt. Try to stay away from it as much as possible, because or even personal loans. More than the fact, I ain't never taken a personal loan before, but companies will get you with a personal loan and put like a 60% interest on it. Something
What?
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's wild.
60%?
Because just think about the folks that really need a personal loan. Not to say you down and out, but either you consolidating debt or you need the money right now. So they're gonna beat you over the head. And people not looking at terms when you need the money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that
Right on
sucks.
that one.
that's something I look back to though. It's definitely
Mm.
credit card debt.
You know them credit cards, they be trapping you, man. Because
Yeah.
I be like, oh, let me get my points. Let me get my. Then I be looking. I'm like, oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god.
Oh my God, it's right because you be having the best intentions. Let me just swipe for this and let me just take the cash and put it,
And
and
then
then
the
you get
cash. Then
busy
I
and
be
you're just
spending the
like,
cash on something else. Then
what,
oh,
Yeah,
what happened?
to
What
it.
happened?
what happened? Yeah, I'm finna. And honestly, that's my 2025 goal: is to stop using them credit cards.
Keep it
Stop.
below, like 30% usage. Try to keep
Right. That's what. That's my. I've been doing that for the most part. I need to get it to 10. I need to
Just go ahead and break it on down.
just go ahead and because I'm telling you, because it'd be like at third, it'd be like at 25, and I'd be like, let me just no. I need to
It's
self-control.
funny because that let me just be like, yeah, I get it.
Exactly. And then I'd be like, let me just book this flight. Let me just see, no.
Because you can't not be in DR. You
And I
can't
can't
it.
not
Can't
be,
not
you can't not
I
be in
gotta
DR.
take the annual birthday trip. I gotta get my hair done. What am I? You want me to walk around? What am I, child?
What
But
we
anyway,
doing?
gotta get
we'll
to
get to
the
that
DR.
later. Okay. Final question of the episode.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on your approach to wealth management in 3 words?
Ooh. Okay. Give me some time. Let me think. Okay. So
But I'll let it cook. I'll let it cook.
let it cook. That might be the words.
Let it
Let
cook.
it
Hmm.
cook. When it
Oh, look at me.
comes to management, but I'm gonna think something different. But really, when I think of like let it cook, like when it comes to wealth management, you have to give stuff time. Give yourself time. People want instant gratification. They've seen a lot of things on social media, on Instagram, and just things you hear from line. There's so many sources you get information from. Sometimes you have to let it cook. Give it time, right? Give yourself time to develop a plan. Give yourself time to figure out what you want, right? Actually take time to sit down and write down what it is you want out of life, what you're trying to see, what you want to happen. Give yourself time to do those things, and it's not instantaneous, right? It's constant learning aspects. As long as you're consistently learning and you're doing what you have to do, I think that's the main goal. So I would use let it cook. That would be a good approach. Give yourself time, right? Because let it cook. It gets there once the dish is done. Taste it and it tastes delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself some time to develop those things and do what you got to do. That's what I'd say.
This has been amazing, Ryan. Thank you so much for not only the tips but the candor, the humor. You letting us into your world in terms of what you would do if money wasn't an obstacle. How you like to pop tags as well. You know what I mean? Like,
Hey,
um, before we wrap up, can you tell people where to find you on your socials that you feel comfortable sharing?
yeah, of course. You guys can find me. Definitely, y'all can just search up my name on LinkedIn. You'll find me there. I'll shoot y'all a little link to my website. It'll give you a link to my website. You can find me there. All my socials are necessary. They're not really business wise, but y'all can find me on there. It's at, yeah, that's Rilo. But I'll send everybody. I'll send y'all the information to those. But business wise, investment advice, anything like that y'all are looking for, I'll definitely y'all can put the links to my websites there, LinkedIn, anything. It's not hard to get in contact with me. It's not hard. If you want to make a difference in your life and you're trying to make those changes, and you actually got some goals, I'm definitely going to give you a goal, a plan, and help you get to that point that you need to. So I'm always around. I ain't hard to find. I'm somewhere doing business.
Do you have any jurisdiction differences? Are you only licensed in certain spaces, or can you talk to everybody in different places?
Licensed everywhere. Like all states. I'm doing business across the state, anywhere, wherever you at. We can hop on a Zoom call. If you're in Texas, I'm located in Texas. You want to meet up? I'm either in Dallas or I'm in Houston. You want to grab coffee, something like that? We can set that up. If you all the way in Minneapolis or you in Cali, something like that, we can hop on a Zoom call and we can get it done. So
He
I
said he
love
getting
it.
everybody right. I know. You know what?
Look,
Snaps for you, Ryan. Kudos.
Isn't it a blessing to get a bag by managing a bag? You know what I mean? Like
It is.
it is. It's a blessing.
You
But
have enough people that'll help you.
no, that's the goal. That's the mission of this pod is to enlighten folks and also get a certain sense of joy at the same time. It's not just how can you be a blessing to other people at the same time, and for you in your profession, it's a beauty that you also get paid to help people and to enlighten them. So, with that said, it has been a pleasure, Ryan. Folks, reach out to him. You'll have all the links in the description of this pod, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.